Loners Stay Together, an original mystery by Robert Napier, Chapter 6. I jammed the key into the steering column, but I had nowhere to go. I was in a small Midwest town where the renovations on the buildings were older than me, and you couldn't read the one faded stop sign, but people still stopped in reverence. Like after the apocalypse and the sign is long gone. Generations from now, their descendants would feel the overpowering urge to stop on that exact spot in this desolate, overgrown meadow, not knowing why and unable to answer their children's eager questions. "What are you doing, Papa? Why do we stop here?" And Papa will say, "We have always stopped here. It is the law." I started the engine. There was comfort in the noise. The car didn't know where I was going and didn't fucking care. It was ready. I backed out and found myself driving towards the diner. I remembered where it was. We ate there as a family once or twice, I don't know. It's not hard to find the only fucking diner in a 1-mile town. It was a dive called Trail Dust. Why anybody wants to eat at a place named after road dirt is a mystery to me. I must have been out of my fucking mind. I had thought to myself, yeah, I'll check out the spot my brother was just shot and killed in cold blood. And while I'm there, I'll have an omelet and hash browns. Just the night before, the street out front had been a crime scene. Likely the worst, or most brazen crime this town had seen in a century. Yet now, there was no indication beyond a shred of yellow police tape clinging to a half-pulled staple in the electric pole. Obviously, the local police had been thorough, able to find all the possible evidence in a little less than 12 hours. But what do I expect? For the whole town to shut down? Stay indoors until further notice? Report all suspicious persons, tramps, vagabonds, foreigners, unwed mothers, and Democrats? Number life must go on. And likely this whole town was one bad day from closing permanently. Same old story. The new highway gave easy access to the larger university town, which is why Roman decided to move here, to be close to his work. And apparently, he liked some of the locals. The town looks surreal in the spring light. Its elm trees and broken street lamps, its storm drains and lack of traffic evoking some phantasmagorical America. This, for all its fresh air and diabetes, is a land of parochialisms and disenchantments. The facade of this small diner off Main Street needs a dash of paint, and the neon sign isn't neon anymore. I have to admit it has a certain charisma. Behind the lunch counter, there's a large, deteriorating mural of famous citizens, mostly 50s athletes. Apparently, this place was called Sluggers back then. Why anybody would eat at a place named after slugs is beyond me. A relic of an era when Americans gave a shit about baseball. That is a baseball reference, right? "You must be a loner," said the waitress as I seated myself in a booth overlooking the street. Murder Street, I called it in my head. I was caught off guard. Did I know her? Had she recognized me from some earlier trip? Likely she had worked here her whole life. Did I look so much like Roman that this shrewd people-watching matriarch had immediately gleaned my secret identity? Half distracted, I asked, "How'd you know?" With a wry, guilty laugh. The woman filled my coffee cup without making eye contact. "'Cause you're sitting alone." She left me to contemplate the menu and my embarrassment in silence. I stared over the edge of the laminated document at the intersection. Not enough cars to qualify as traffic. I don't know what I expected, that the shooter or shooters would walk by the plate glass window looking like Goodfellas, the pearly grip of a Saturday night special barely visible under their Italian leather jackets. Then what would I do? Confront them? Follow them to their lair? I just stared. "Hard to believe," said the waitress. "Oh, eggs and hash browns," I said. "Sorry, what?" "What's hard to—" I wasn't here, but they said it was the strangest thing. That man pays his bill, gets up, crosses the intersection, and about halfway he just drops. Like he's having a heart attack. That's what Cook says. "Oh Lord, he's having a heart attack." Like I think he was more worried about his cooking being greasy and all, and he says that, and everyone looks, course nobody heard anything. They all said, "Oh, they heard a gunshot. They heard a million shots from over there, no from up the street." Bullshit, because anybody around here hears a shot, they'll jump right up and nobody moved because nobody heard nothing. Anyway, cops cleared out about an hour ago. Spent most their time in here. Looking for clues, they said. My ass. Not unless the clues were at the bottom of their gravy bowls. They ain't gonna solve this one. Why do you say that? 'Cause sugar, they can't solve shit. How you want those eggs? I pay at the counter. Just my luck, Deputy Dillon is ordering coffee to go. He looks at me over his sunglasses. I guess it was supposed to be a kind of hat tip, but without a hat. Mornin', Ms. Loner. And I don't know why, but that annoys me, and I say, "Lo, ner." And of course he says, "What?" And here we go. Loner, Loner, Cass, Andra Loner. Loner? He repeats. And then I realize he baited me into a conversation. And he says, "Is that right?" Not like he appreciated the correction, but like he's already forgotten what I said. Right. Isn't that French for something? The girl at the counter, she's cute, a bit disheveled, 17 but looks 20, with a reserved smile. I can see by the vertical scar between her nose and lip she's had some soft palate reconstruction. It's endearing but not subtle, like a UNICEF commercial. Obviously she's who the deputy came to see because the coffee is shit and this may be a small town, but there's still a fucking Starbucks. She clears her throat and says, "Mrs. Loner?" But my eyes are still on the deputy and I say, "Sure, it's French." To which he repeats, "Is that right? Mrs. Loner?" The deputy takes a sip of coffee and says, "That's real cool." "Mrs. Loner?" I face the cashier and she looks me over. I'm wearing a washed-out Metallica t-shirt, slacks, and sunglasses in my hair. "Oui?" I say, because when I have hash browns I think I'm funny. She seems to forget what she was trying to say, but after a weird delay she says, "You haven't paid." "What's the damage?" 20.43. I paused. 20. "Hey, do you need a dishwasher?" The cashier looks puzzled, but it's attractive on her. "Just kidding." I decided to take it easy on her as I dig through my messenger-style purse and hand over some crumpled bills. "Sorry, I've got my life in here." The cashier is Ramsey Ramirez. You know that. But I didn't. I let my sunglasses drop into place as I fumble out the diner door. It's quiet. Nobody heard nothing. That's what the waitress had said. As I started the car, I wondered what that meant to the case. A silencer? A sniper? Probably just means the diner was noisy and nobody would know a gunshot if they heard it. And strange as it may seem, 3 shots are less alarming than 1. You hear one and you think, "Oh, that's weird, that's scary." You hear 3 and it's just background noise. It's just routine. And if nobody gets carried away, we all assume everything is fine. As I sat behind the wheel, I considered that there was plenty of parking out front of the diner. Why would Roman cross the street? I looked up and down the road. Nothing but deteriorating storefronts, hardware, liquor, guns, sewing, check advance, gas and garage, antiques, and what the fuck else a slowly dying Midwesterner needs on weekends. No evidence of robbery, and the overkill was textbook vendetta. With nothing further to investigate, I decided my best chance was to look into Roman's personal life. I steered my late hot rod towards Roman's house and tried not to think about how I had no effing clue who my brother really was. Just as I was reminding myself that the answer to who killed my brother wasn't going to fall in my lap, I rounded the dusty bend towards his house and saw 2 men standing in the yard. I hadn't been careful in my approach, and there was no chance of driving by on this desolate dead-end dirt road. Like, don't mind me. I'm just a random motorist out for a drive past the house of a recently murdered professor. Must have taken a wrong turn at 60 miles per hour, oops. I had to double down. If they weren't the killers, maybe I could bluff them into thinking I was. That I was dangerous and aggressive, and not somebody whose yard you wanted to loiter in. I gunned the engine and whipped the tail around hard to bounce into the gravel driveway, scattering sand. The 2 men, dressed like dads and standing like construction workers, rotated to watch me. When the Trans Am came to a sudden rest, one of them waved in an exaggerated flagging me down gesture, as if I might not have seen them. My mind made an impressive inductive leap, noticing they must have been walking along the road, and that Roman was walking from the diner. And what are the odds that just as I was wondering what walking had to do with Roman's murder, here these two are walking by his house? Brian had given these flashes of insight the pet name of paranoid delusions, but as I always say, fuck you, Brian. They approached the driveway like they wanted to lean in my window and chat. Not fucking likely. I had to weigh my options. Staying in the car gave me greater mobility if I had to run, but getting out of the seat gave me a better chance of defending myself. And as my prep school PE instructor will tell you, I never had any inclination to run anywhere except toward a fight. Tucking the revolver in my pants, I quickly cleared the door and moved sideways towards the trunk. There was nothing dangerous in there, but they didn't know that. Like most men, they had an irrational fear of strangers, but not nearly enough fear of short, angry blondes. So they were visibly perplexed by my sudden movements, but approached anyway. "Howdy," one said. "Nice car you got there, Phew." I'm Gilroy. This is Street." The other squinted against the sun. "Howdy. You looking for Rome?" "Yeah," I said. "You know him?" "Oh, sure. I thought someone might be looking for him." "Here I am," I laughed coquettishly. I didn't want them to know that I knew anything, but didn't want them to think I didn't know anything either. The detective in me wanted to get these guys' IDs, especially the quiet one called Street. But not only did I 1000% lack the authority to demand identification, it would also have tipped them off, and pissed them off. As it turns out, BTW, the homie's given birth name was actually Street. 'Cause why the fuck not? "Well, we kinda heard, what happened and all, and wanted to check on the place, I guess it don't make much sense, but we look out for each other. Or we used to." He stopped there and seemed to expect some kind of validation. I just nodded. Okay, sure. If I could keep them talking long enough, they'd forget I hadn't told them my name. "You must be his sister," said Street. He was the younger of the two, good-looking in a hillbilly kind of way. "He said you'd come by?" "Oh yeah," said Gilroy. "Cassie, right? He said you might come by. I'm sorry, that you missed him. Come all this way and all?" "Yeah," I said, slapping my hip. "It's been a lot to sort of handle right now, so..." "Yeah, I expect. We were just checking on the place, like I say, we live up yonder on the hill. Neighbors, Anyway, I expect you've got a lot to handle, so we'll keep on moving, Like I say, sorry to hear what happened, just don't make sense, Anyway, we stared across the Trans Am at each other. It was getting hot outside. "Do the cops know who did it?" asked Street, squinting, holding his hand over his eyes. I shook my head noncommittally. "Fucking cops," he said. "Couldn't solve a sandwich." "You get into the house okay?" asked Gilroy. "There's a key there under the rock, I don't know, what's the state of the estate or what have you, but far as I'm concerned, well, it don't concern me, but I reckon you got plenty to sort out on that end." I shook and nodded my head. "Alrighty, take care," he said. The pair turned on their heels and started walking down the road. I watched them, but they never looked back. It's funny thing about visitors on foot, you never really feel like they're gone. With a car, it has this whole departure ritual, and you'd know if they came back, you'd see and hear their car, and a car can only be on the road or in the driveway. Of course, none of that was guaranteed, but that's how it feels. I went to turn over the obviously fake rock, and there was, in fact, a key. There was a dirt outline superimposed over another dirt outline, like the key had been disturbed within a few weeks. Could be something, could be nothing. And that's when I asked myself an obvious question I should have asked already. Where was Roman's car? It wasn't in the drive. Instead of going into the house, I went around to the back. Not only to check for a car, but to assure myself Gilroy and Street weren't lingering. I saw it all for the first time in daylight. Not surprisingly, there was a sky blue Mustang circa 63 moldering on blocks under an aging shed. Roman was never a car buff, and it likely belonged to the previous owner. It was too far to walk to town, even for an eccentric professor. And besides, He commuted to work every day to the university. His car was likely at the diner. No way I parked next to it without realizing. Then why was he crossing the intersection on foot? Had the police searched the vehicle? Why hadn't anyone mentioned it? Was it being held as part of the investigation, like Roman's phone and wallet? Where is his car? And besides, he commuted to work every day to the university. His car was likely at the diner. No way I parked next to it without realizing. Then why was he crossing the intersection on foot? Had the police searched the vehicle? Why hadn't anyone mentioned it? Was it being held as part of the investigation, like Roman's phone and wallet? Where is his car? I went inside with a box of office supplies from my car. I threw its contents on the couch. There were some spare clothes, my desk nameplate, extra bullets, a notebook, and a lucky cat figurine. By the way, I always take extra clothes with me for several reasons. One, mainly because I tend to spill shit. I chew with my mouth open and I eat fast on the go. I spend a lot of nights in the car, or I used to, doing surveillance stuff, not as sexy as it sounds. Two, and lastly, a pro tip. When you're tailing somebody, especially on foot, it's good to have layers you can switch out of on the fly. So yeah, I have some clothes with me, and thank God.
Hello, listener. My name is Robert Napier. I just wanted to say thank you for your support. If you enjoy this content or have suggestions on how to improve on it, please leave a like or comment. It would mean a lot, and I'd really appreciate it. Consider subscribing so you never miss an episode. Thank you.